I lost? But I wasn't even doing anything. Man, this game just does not impress me. There is nothing I could have done to avoid this. No other choice would have changed my situation. Free will is awesome. It lets us do a bunch of different things, like saying slurs on the internet. Funnily enough, free will also allows us to not do that specific thing. No matter how small of an impact it has, every single button we press in a video game is a choice. Meaning, yes, when you lost to that fireball spamming Ken, it just means that you kept making the wrong choice over and over again. But when I talk about choices, I obviously don't mean that. I think about stuff like choosing whether to tell this guy that you're sorry for desecrating a war memorial, or to tell him that his dead brother is a little bitch and so is he. And then there's Fallout 4. Older games in the Fallout franchise had well-written specific dialogue as responses to NPCs. These responses are great because it is literally what your character says, meaning you never guess what you respond with. Guess what game does make you guess? In Fallout 4, you get to choose one of 4 responses, typically ranging from direct answer to direct answer but somewhat sarcastic. And on console, you don't even see the full line. You just see a basic 1 to 2 word rundown of what you'll say. Not only are these choices truly awful writing wise, but the fact that you don't even really know what you'll say completely ruins any plan of role-playing. Of course, a lot of dialogue options usually don't impact the game that much. They're just there to add flavor and immerse you into the world of the game. Knowing the ins and outs of why a character respects or scorns a faction is incredibly interesting. Great dialogue choices help make a world feel like it could exist without the player's input. I absolutely love these kinds of flavor dialogue, when the world of the game is worth a damn. But when the world building and writing are bad... Listen to me when I say this. Nobody, and I mean nobody, cares that elongated grub nub is the favorite meal of Droopy McCool over there. That's the problem with optional dialogue choices. If the writing is shit, then the extra dialogue options just become extra fluff to get through to progress. Dragon Age the Veilguard's dialogue options are awful, because it truly feels like the developers had a specific way the main character should be written. But at the last minute, they realized that the franchise was well known and loved for the wide amount of ways players can play and act differently. So in the end, they just added a bunch of different dialogue options, just so your character can say something different, without affecting their personality too much. You can't be evil, you can't even be slightly mean, because that wouldn't be nice.
Everyone needs to be happy, because that wouldn't be inclusive.
Of course, not to call the game woke. Calling games woke is just a strategy to muddy criticism about a game, and figuring out whether a game is woke or not is not a productive conversation to have. It's fine if you want to have a story where everyone is happy and nice to each other, but that's not Dragon Age.
I am sorry.
Sometimes, games implement morality systems in an attempt to make players think before they act. It does not make players think before they act. Seriously, is there anybody in the world that reacts like this when doing a crime in a game? No, not my karma. Not my karma. What am I gonna do? I'm an evil person. Morality systems in a lot of games are heavily flawed. Let me just put it like this. You could be the most despicable and evil human being ever and commit mass murder in a town, but because you said hello to a bunch of people, you're a good person. Unlike real life, where killing someone has consequences, if you get caught. Well, in video games, someone's life is worth $20. $20. That man had a whole family. $20. Of course, some games can absolutely do morality systems well, like Fallout New Vegas, which does everything perfectly. Except all of these things. In New Vegas, when you do certain actions, you gain or lose karma. And then something happens? This is another one of my issues with morality systems, and why a lot of times it's a pointless choice, unless you go out of your way to be strictly good or bad. It's the fact that nothing happens. Yeah, some games like Infamous give you different abilities and appearance if you're good or bad. But all the other games I've played just do mostly nothing. Yeah, you might get a message saying shit like AIDS disapproves or whatever, but again, unless you choose to be the most despicable human being, nothing's really ever gonna happen. Choices not really mattering is something that happens very often in Telltale games. Telltale Games makes interactive story games where, according to most people, choices don't matter. For example, in The Walking Dead Season 1, no matter if you save Duck or Sean at Herschel's farm, he kicks you out and it leads the characters to the pharmacy in Macon. And it is true that both options here don't change much of the story. But what players don't observe is what actually changes. I've seen this image float around a lot in the Telltale community to joke about how choices don't really matter. But really, it should look more like this. Yeah, a lot of times, the choices don't affect the ending, but it does affect how we get to that ending. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. The first major choice in episode 1 of season 1 of The Walking Dead is whether to save Doug or Carly. In the end, they both end up dying no matter what you choose. But in episode 2, they both bring their own unique story beats.
Hey, Doug.
Doug creates an alarm system in the motel parking lot, and Carly encourages Lee to reveal his past to the group. Choices in Telltale games change the journey, not the destination. This is one of the reasons spoilers don't bother me as much anymore. I don't enjoy a story because of its ending. I like it for the journey. I genuinely like these types of choices because they always make me want to replay games just to see the different paths. I think this is the most important quality of good choices in games. How replayable does it make the game? And now this is the part where I get excited because I get to talk about classes. Classes are the choice that absolutely makes me the happiest whenever they're included into a game. Because it's usually a 100% guaranteed second playthrough for me. Nothing is better than replaying a game with a completely different playstyle. Baldur's Gate, Dragon Age, World of Warcraft, Diablo, all so replayable, simply because of how many different playstyles you can have. But not only that, you can tell so much about someone by what class they play. And no other choice in games really gives you this opportunity to have your own identity. Aside from like, choosing your identity with character creators, but that's for later. Like, if someone plays Warrior in WoW, I immediately put them in a shower because they're a stinky WoW player. And if another player plays Mage, I immediately stomp on them like the cockroach they are.
Do you see my mana? What am I supposed to do for you?
But also, it's just fun to experiment with all sorts of different playstyles and finding which one is best suited for you. My favorite class system in all of the games that I've played is Borderlands because I'm biased and I just like Borderlands. Classes in Borderlands have their own unique characterization and backstory. I have at least 100 hours in every Borderlands game because I just had to go and play with every character in every game. And because every character's skills are so unique, you get to use different gear every playthrough. Here's what I mean. In Borderlands 2, playing as Maya encourages the player to use SMGs and elemental weapons, while Zero's playstyle encourages the players to use snipers or even do a melee build. And then for Gage, you're encouraged to use pistols and shotgun while you have Anarchy to... But even if I find Gage very boring, the fact that she thrives with some guns that other characters can't really use that well is the reason I replay these games. Look at the Orphan Maker shotgun, for example. While it might be useless for everyone, Salvador can make great use out of it. What's that? No! I just got the word that this is a terrible example, as you could give Salvador a wet piece of paper, and he would still be able to one-shot all the raid bosses. For a better example, both Maya and Zero use snipers really effectively. Zero is really good with them because he has a full skill tree dedicated to making them stronger. But both of them have an action skill that tremendously helps them reposition and get easy headshots on enemies. And if you don't like a specific playstyle, the game always lets you switch up your skills and try something new. Except if you play Gage. Gage is incredibly boring in Borderlands 2, not only because of her playstyle, but because all her builds revolve around one skill, Anarchy. With Anarchy, every time you empty your magazine or get a kill, you gain a stack of Anarchy. Every stack increases damage, but reduces accuracy. Without going into specifics, most of Gage's skills are not that impressive, meaning that to actually get decent damage, you pretty much have to spec into Anarchy. This makes playing Gage awful because she's so redundant since every builds play the same. But this brings another choice I absolutely love: builds. Finding what skills synergize with each other is such a fun process. I remember coming up with this really cool Necromancer build in Diablo 4 where I would use the Decay ability paired with the Rotting aspect to absolutely destroy enemies. You might also notice that there is no gameplay on the screen, and that is because I could not be fucked to re-download Diablo 4 to record like 10 seconds of gameplay. I'll always prefer games that slowly introduce the player to their leveling up mechanics. I feel that, and I'm gonna need you to sit down for that one, that Path of Exile does a great job at introducing you to all its mechanic at once without making it overwhelming. Yes, the game is notorious for having a skill tree that looks like this, but the game makes navigating this colossus of a skill tree easy by giving you a search bar. Unlike most other games, in Path of Exile, every class uses the same skill tree. They just start at different locations. The tree only includes passives, so thanks to the search bar, just type what kind of skill or build interests you, and the game will highlight those passives. The actual active abilities are acquired by socketing gems in gear. These gems are pretty simple to okay, that might seem really overwhelming, but really, once you figure out that you only really have to read this part, it makes finding new gems really exciting. The gem system in the skill tree helps to give players the most amount of freedom in build variety and choice I've seen in any ARPG. Not only that, but because of the way that Path of Exile's mechanics work, you're always allowed to use weapons and abilities that may not be optimal to your class, but I mean, who cares if it's not effective? Use a mace with the ranger class, or use a rocket launcher with the sniper class. Does it really matter that a build isn't effective if it's fun to use? This is the thing that defines the greatest build in leveling up mechanics, this ability to choose what you want to use and not be arbitrarily restricted. Because no matter how bad Barrett is at magic, I will have him shoot fire because that's cool. Or, I mean, I could just put Tifa in his place. Another choice that really makes me happy is deciding your party in RPGs. The best turn-based RPGs do a fantastic job at giving all the different party members their own unique quirks. This is a very recent example, but Clair Obscur genuinely has to be one of the best turn-based RPGs ever, and one of the reasons why, in my opinion, is the party members. Every single characters have their own playstyle. Lune, for example, can acquire elemental stains by doing certain actions. When you have stains, you can then spend them to empower or give new effects to special moves. Gustav can charge his arm with hits, Mael can switch to 3 different stances that give various bonuses, and Ciel's ability takes way too long to explain shortly in a section like this. I love it when party members all have unique abilities and gimmicks. It encourages you to always change and experiment with different parties for different situations. An enemy is too tanky? Switch to Mael and get the damage rolling. Do you have trouble dodging or parrying a move from a boss? Switch to Mael and kill them before they even attack you. You want to have fun at the game and enjoy its challenge? Remove Mael from your party and you're golden. And thanks to the dodge and parry mechanics, you aren't forced to have a tank or healer type character. If you're good enough at parrying, you can just build everyone for damage. Xenoblade Chronicles 1 also has amazing variety in party members. Shulk, for example, is a glass cannon that can offer the party some support. Ricky's focus is on debuffing enemies and buffing allies. And then Charla. The reason I mention Xenoblade though is because it brings another important choice I haven't really seen before. The placement of your party. Party member placement is important in other RPGs, but I find it particularly important in Xenoblade Chronicles 1. And it's simply because you don't control your party members. Party members are actually controlled by AI, and the player only controls the leader. This is actually a very big deal since sometimes the AI is so fucking stupid. Seriously, I'll be at like 90% health and Charlotte goes,
"One heal bullet coming right up."
"Don't fucking heal me, I'll be fine." Going back on the dialogue choices though, a lot of games tend to include them, even though they don't really matter. Let me explain what I mean by that. Just look at the Zelda franchise, for example. You can usually respond with 1 or 2 responses, but it doesn't change anything. In general, Zelda games just don't offer a lot of choice in how you can play your adventure differently. Well, actually, this excludes the most meaningful choice a player can make. It's the choice to play these games or not. In Dark Souls lore, the undead are adventurers and heroes that, after countless deaths, just lost their will to keep going. This implies that players that lost their will to keep going and gave up on the game canonically became hollow husks, mindless shells that instinctively attack anything that comes across them. It also means that they weren't the chosen one. Choosing to give up on a game makes you give up on being the hero that saves the world. Unless leaving the game could help? Majora's Mask is a game about accepting your own doom as an angry moon constantly threatens the inhabitants of Clocktown. The ever-present doom even being reflected in the name of the kingdom itself, Termina, one letter short away from terminal. In this adventure, you only have 3 days to save the world, and failing results in the end. In this case, maybe not playing and leaving the world stagnant could be the merciful option. Think about all the characters that would perish if Link fails to stop Skull Kid. But the choice is still yours. Do you leave this world in stasis, making all the characters safe from harm? Or do you pick up your controller, ready to face the evil Majora's Mask, knowing that if you fail, everyone is doomed? Nah, I'm just kidding. YouTube is fucking lame and doesn't let you do that shit anymore. Can you believe that I just spat all this nonsense and framed it as being deep when literally every game is like this? I genuinely started to kind of believe it myself. Anyways, that's it. Eat shit and die, bitch.